we don't often experience police violence like community members experience it, which for me was, yes, last night was a jarring realization. My first sense when they kind of announced that we were being arrested was just the sense of shame. And I was kind of mad at myself for feeling that because, I'm a physician. I'm not supposed to get arrested. Like, what is this going to mean for me? What are my colleagues going to think? I mean, physicians are rule followers. We don't, and I thought I was there as a medic. You just kind of follow where the protest is happening, and you try and support people. But it was just sort of like finding myself at odds with seeing police as being colleagues or being as and intellectually I've kind of known that no, this is not what the police does. They're not sort of they're there to protect property, not necessarily people. But to experience it firsthand was a very eye-opening experience. And the issues that they were rallying for was to not let Trump steal the election, stopping the racist attacks on immigrants, housing and economic relief for all in need, fighting the pandemic, healthcare for all. So that essentially was the rally, and it was essentially two marches that converged into one big march at 6 o'clock, and then a little bit after 6, we kind of then proceeded to march together. Once we got onto the freeway, which was I-94, very shortly after that, we were prevented by the police, and that was MPD, Minneapolis Police Department, and the state troopers that prevented us from exiting. They turned off the street lights on the freeway, and they wouldn't let us off the ramp. They started circling us with a helicopter, shining a searchlight onto protesters. And then we started hearing these announcements. We kind of saw troopers in front of us, behind us, on the sides of the highway. And they said we're under arrest and we needed to sit down. Obviously people were upset. We had elderly people there. We had families there with little kids. We had some immunocompromised people there. And this was very unprecedented. They prevented us from exiting, and then they said that we would be arrested for public nuisance and unlawful assembly. They then detained us for 5 hours. There was no way for anybody to go to the bathroom. If you didn't have water, you couldn't get it. If somebody needed medications, they couldn't get it. We ended up, one of the protesters that we were with had a bowel condition where they had to use the bathroom and couldn't hold it. So we had to get up and form a barrier, so that they could, so they didn't have to soil themselves. And they had to relieve themselves on the highway because the police wouldn't let us off. They initially started letting go kids, and then they ended up separating some of the kids from their parents and citing them for being out past curfew when they weren't out past curfew. They were with their parents, and they were separated by law enforcement. And they dropped people off at all points in Minneapolis, Edina, Bloomington, which are suburbs. And there were community members who had to go tailgating the buses, kind of following them around to find out where they were dropping off people to go and get the community members. It wasn't the police keeping anybody safe. It was the community members organizing. People were just marching, chanting, and they were going to get on the freeway, get off the freeway. Um, these protests were publicized on social media. Everybody knew that they were happening. There were medics organizing it. There were several community organizations and labor unions organizing and partaking in this protest. So, and they very conveniently cordoned everything. They brought in paddy wagons and EMS, and they had these whiteboards where they were kind of writing down people's names, taking shots on the highway. So it was a very organized effort. So it's like they knew that. So to kind of expose so many people to COVID, to waste so much taxpayer money by arresting peaceful protesters, and to confine people on the freeway without any ability to any warning, any ability to go to the bathroom, have water, have any medical care. It was deliberate intimidation, escalation, and when you experience police violence, when you experience your city as the police state that it is firsthand, there's nothing. There are fewer ways to radicalize you quickly. So, and the police officers were not wearing masks. I mean, they were in state-of-the-art riot gear, and they were not wearing masks. Today, there was a tweet by Robin Garwood, who is the Minneapolis council member. He's a council member aide, and he said that there was a phone call, and it was the Public Safety Commissioner John Harrington who claimed that he gave the order for kettling protesters on the highway and then arresting us. I don't think a Biden presidency would change police violence in any way. He has repeatedly said that in response to any police murders, he has said that there's no excuse for violence and looting. You know, if you go to the history of looting, you know, slaves used to run away from plantations, and they would call it that they were stealing themselves because they were private property. So, you know, I don't think the Democrats or the Republicans really understand what looting is. Like, that is sort of attacking capitalism at its core, that it's starting, that's kind of destroying people's lives. So I don't think a Biden administration would necessarily be better. More and more people are getting exposed to police violence by being in these protests and uprising, and that realization is happening that the police is not there to protect us. They're there to protect private property. They're not comrades of healthcare workers. I think that realization is happening quickly, but unfortunately, also, as we can see with these elections, with Biden versus Trump, capitalism has stunted our ability to even dream that we can have a different system. We are so stuck in being able to even envision that a different reality is possible, and we can have a different world where we have to kind of pick either a neoliberal imperialist or this wannabe fascist dictator, and we're just kind of stuck in that mode. Like, you know, the higher up you are in terms of your earning, the more yes, you're exploited, but you're also benefiting from the status quo. So it's harder. So the work radicalization gets harder as you go up in socioeconomic status.